2011, the world reached 7 billion people. That's a lot of people. Today, the current population sits at 7,241,900,000 people. That's almost a quarter of a billion people more, with an increasing rate of 1.8%. However, 842 million of those people are currently starving. Food. For some people, it's a way of life. It's how they make their living. But for everyone else, it's a means for survival. If we don't start conserving food now, future generations will suffer. Today, I want to talk to you about a sustainable food system. To begin, we'll talk about the current food shortage situation that we're in right now. Then, we will move on to discuss the benefits of using a sustainable agricultural system. And finally, we will discuss how we can create a sustainable food system. According to Eric Lubenhuser of the United States Department of Agriculture, a majority of the Midwest is in a severe drought since the start of the water year. Well, what does that mean? Well, according to FAO.org, when rain fails to fall, then crop and fodder fail to grow, which leads to a sale of assets by farmers, which results in reduced benefits for those farmers. And then next year, they end up producing a smaller and smaller yield. Well, that can be a problem, because with a smaller and smaller yield, we're not getting the crops nor the agriculture we need. Floyd Hammer of the Huffington Post says that 40,000 children die each year from malnutrition, starvation, or hunger-caused diseases, and 16.7 million children live in food-insecure houses. A food-insecure house would be defined as one that cannot always provide enough food. The United States Department of Agriculture and the United States Environmental Protection Agency declared that 31 million tons of food, or 40% of the American production of food, goes to landfills each year. Now, this is just the current situation that we're in. Next, I want to discuss with you the benefits of sustainable agriculture. Sustainable agriculture would consist of two parts: sustainable crops and sustainable livestock. With sustainable crops, by using crop rotation or intercropping, those are two of the best ways to create sustainable crops. Crop rotation would be substituting one crop one year, such as corn, with a different crop the next year, such as beans. And this rotation keeps the land very fertile, so the yields stay high. The other method, intercropping, would be growing two different types of crops on the same land, such as corn and beans, but on the same land. This has proven to bring more yields each year, based on sustainableag.org. Sustainable livestock. This is mainly a difference between a pasture-based system, which sustainable livestock supports, versus factory farms. In a pasture-based system, they allow their livestock to have sunlight and open areas for the cattle or any other livestock that there might be, versus the confined factories that factory farms may put those in. The other benefit of pasture-based system would be the grazing that's allowed, rather than the food that's fed to the animals indoors. Sustainable livestock is proven to reduce environmental damage, and it yields tastier and more nutritious food. I'll now discuss with you how to create a sustainable food system. WRI.org says 800 million people are food insecure, which means they may not have enough food at all times. However, at some times they may or may not have food. And currently, we're at a 69% food gap if it were the year 2050. The trick is to reduce that food gap, so that way we have enough food to distribute amongst all people. The easiest way to do this is to minimize excessive food consumption. There are many ways to reduce excessive food consumption that we can do in our daily lives. The first one would be reduce obesity. Well, how do you reduce obesity? Yes, we've all heard the diet and exercise and diet and exercise. However, not a lot of people stick to it. By sticking to it, you can actually only help yourself, but help somebody else. Another way to reduce excessive food consumption would be to reduce loss and waste. Loss and waste would be just throwing away your extra food, or, oh, I'll take all this, but not eat it all, which, let's be honest, all of us do. And the final way would be to reduce the fertility rates, mainly in Africa and other growing populations. Today, we talked about the current food shortage situation, and while we're not technically in a big drought, it can cause problems if we're not prepared. Then, we discussed the benefits of a sustainable agriculture by talking about sustainable livestock and sustainable crops. And finally, we discussed how we can create a sustainable food systems by doing the little things in our lives. Now, we may have enough food for people right now, but if we don't start worrying about creating sustainable agriculture and a sustainable food system, food may not be available to future generations if we do not make a change.